Hey, everyone. Let's look forward to this last round. We're going to have Mr. Talent against Steve Lasso. Steve Lasso is a really solid player on Long Island. He got top 16 in St. Louis last year. Mr. Talent is a pretty well-known Twitch streamer. He top cut the last one of these that I remember going to. Really solid up-and-coming player. Yeah, Steve Lasso, I know that he's going to be coming at us with a Charizard team that he's been using for about the past month and is looking to make it in a top cut. Both of these players are, in fact. Either one of them can make it in if they win. Might come down to resistance, but it's possible for either of them. There's a lot on the line here. I think we'll be hopping into team preview in one moment. Tournament didn't go the best for me today, but I am always glad to have a chance to commentate, and hopefully you guys can enjoy the match with me. I have no idea what Mr. Talon is going to be using today, but I'd imagine that he's somewhat prepared for a Charizard team like Steve's, but I'm pretty sure Steve has a few things out of the ordinary on it as well. It would be nice to have a friend to talk to right now, another nice old commentator. Maybe in a little bit. Alright, we're going to be moving into team preview in 1 second. What other games are going on this round? I know Case, Tommy are both 2-2. They might be playing. Patrick at 3-1. I think Moore is at 3-1. Okay, so Mr. Talon's going to have a team of Kartana, Halucha, Volcarona, Lele, Metagross, Suicune against Steve's Charizard, Landorus, Mimikyu, Cresselia, Tapu Koko, and Snorlax. Mr. Talon's team has a lot of kind of strange Pokemon on it you don't see too often, like Suicune, Volcarona, Kartana, giving me slight vibes of a team that's been popular on ladder recently that also has Kang and Koko. Really excited to see Lele Halucha. I think it's a pretty decent pairing that we just haven't seen too much of. There's a lot of Pokemon that just went from nothing to something because of the Unburn and Misty just Seeds interaction. Suicune and Halucha, and potentially Kartana as well, or even Volcarona, the team has a lot of speed control, a lot of relatively fast Pokemon that's just going to be putting out a lot of offensive pressure. Steve's team also has pretty consistent pressure between Charizard, Tapu Koko, and Landorus, with a Trick Room bulkier mode of Mimikyu, Cresselia, and Snorlax. I imagine that he'll want to go with the slightly bulkier stuff here instead of trying to fight against Mr. Talent for who's fastest, who has the most offensive pressure. And who knows what kind of Mimikyu and Snorlax it's going to be. Big question to find out going into this first game. I don't think matchup favors either player too strongly. I'm interested to see what Mr. Talon's options for countering Trick Room are going to be. That seems like a really big question here. And against the Mimikyu Snorlax lead, I hope you have something to do about Trick Room. Maybe a roar coming out from this Suicune. But between Suicune and Volcarona, I don't think Mr. Talon has any hope of knocking out either of these Pokemon just based on the fact that Volcarona probably goes first and couldn't use a Z-move or something to break a Mimikyu that had its disguise broken. Volcarona just going to throw out a Heat Wave, break Mimikyu's disguise, do about 20% to Snorlax. Probably not choice specs or any boosting item based on that damage. So you can just going to throw out a Scald into Mimikyu for only about 25%, not find a burn as Snorlax belly drums up. And Mimikyu is probably about to go for a Trick Room here. This is an amazing turn 1 for Steve if it plays out like that. Snorlax getting all that health back as Mimikyu goes for Trick Room. Steve has taken very little damage here and put himself in a perfect position. Mr. Talent like kind of wants to use some protects to just stall out the Trick Room, but if it's something like a Scarf Volcarona, it might not have that option. If Mimikyu Psych-Ups, it's taking advantage of your protects, and both of the Pokemon can just choose a knockout every turn. Right now it's only Snorlax that can do that, but Mimikyu might join it. Volcarona goes for protect. Snorlax returns into Suicune. Will it find the knockout? Suicune is down in one hit. What is Mimikyu going to go for? As Mimikyu Psych-Ups the Snorlax. A perfect first 2 turns for Steve. Mr. Talent's hope for getting out of this game alive are just dwindling and dwindling. Tapu Lele comes in. Oh, force. Lele is almost certainly going to be faster than both these Pokemon. Maybe not the Mimikyu, but based on the HP stat, I'm just guessing it's on the faster end. With the Mimikyu at +6, the Snorlax at +6, I am just not sure if there's too much that Mr. Talent can do.
An interesting time. Okay, definitely came in at an interesting time. Drew is in a tight spot, clearly. You said both these guys are at +6?
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right, well.
Metagro's almost getting knocked out by a single return from Snorlax. Mimikyu getting that special signature Z move ready. And I can only imagine that it's coming for the Tapu Lele, not wanting to risk a play rough miss. This is a good choice. If Lele protected, I'm not even sure if it would survive. Lele getting nervous, Mimikyu darting around,
I
getting it ready.
It's
so great.
So
I love all the signature Z move animations, except for Eevee.
Yeah, we were, yeah, same. we were admiring the Komodo signature animation earlier today. That was a cool one.
You get a little bit tired of watching it, but it's still pretty fun.
Yeah.
Right, Lele goes down to the Z move. Metagro's on like a little bit over 10%.
Mm-hmm.
It's just down to that in Volcarona. There are 2 more turns of Trick Room, I think. First one, yeah, I think there's only going to be, there's 2 more, so I'm not sure if Mr. Talent's going to get any more damage off this game.
This looks like a case where everything must have gone right. Again, I came in halfway through. It looks like everything just went right for Steve, no?
Yeah. Mr. Talent couldn't really do too much about Steve's Trick Room on the first turn, and he got off a Belly Drum and then a Psych-Up with just very few things going wrong.
I guess Drew was looking to. I'm assuming he went for some early protection or something and just let it all happen.
Yeah, at one point a Volcarona protected and nothing attacked it, and that let a Suicune next to it get knocked out as Mimikyu psyched up the Snorlax.
Oh no.
Just party started there.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes if your predictions line up perfectly wrong, sometimes that's equally impressive as getting them perfectly right, you know?
I think the thing that went wrong for Drew here was that he probably didn't expect Steve to go through Trick Room mode so hard. Like, if he'd expected it, he probably just would have tried it differently. It's not that his predictions in the game were necessarily that bad, but his game plan didn't happen to catch what Steve went for. Mm-hmm. And Steve nabs a 4-0 victory, not even needing to switch out.
So what does Mr. Talent do to address this, man? Like, that's tough. I mean, as Steve, you gotta be looking at this saying, like, okay, that worked. Do I do it again, you know?
Yeah. Mr. Talent didn't really show us anything to do about, like, on his team, what does he have to handle Trick Room? That's the main thing we have to ask here. I'm pretty sure Steve would just want to try to do it again. Like, we only saw Mimikyu and Snorlax. Maybe there's a Charizard in the back with Tailwind or something to potentially go fast if it needed to, but okay. Trick Room definitely seems like the better thing to be going for, even in this game, too. Like,
you said Drew brought himself a Charizard?
No, Drew didn't, but Steve might have had one in the back.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just looking at Twitch chat, seeing what everyone thinks.
Same.
Oh no! Gio said something in response to me insulting Eevee and got banned from chat.
Oh no!
Gio, we'll have to undo that in a moment, but I'm allowed to have my opinions.
No, man, I'm also... The Eevee animation is the bane of my existence for a while, just because it got stricken on YouTube for so long.
Oh yeah, you need shiny Eevees to get around it.
Yep.
All right, so maybe Mr. Talent's Lele, call him Drew, call him Mr. Talent. I don't know.
I call him Drew because
they both
buddy,
work. Yeah. Lele might have taunt. Like, looking at his team, I kind of have to assume that it does, just because I don't know how else you're patching up the Trigger matchup.
Well, I mean, he might go for some sort of like maybe some sort of blitzkrieg strategy. You know, you see the Snorlax, maybe you bring in the Hawlucha, you just smack it as hard as you can, and cross your fingers.
Or double up on the Mimikyu, like break disguise with maybe a weak move, follow it up with a strong move. Yeah, that's exactly what might happen here, but there's no Mimikyu to hit.
All right, well, Cresselia definitely being a pesky Pokemon, but I'm really liking the way this field's laid out. I mean, Charizard's putting some pressure on this Metagross. You know, Metagross putting some pressure back as well. You know, you've got. Oh man, I actually really like this board.
Yeah, I don't think it favors either of them too strongly, but the thing is, the Cresselia is very safe here. Against two Psychic types, they just don't have too much to do to hit it. It's not friend by knockout. Charizard, on the other hand, would probably go down to like Psychic Terrain Zen Headbutt from the Metagross and wants to be careful of that.
Right.
We didn't see the Lele's item last game. I think we saw it go for Protect, so it's not going to be a choice item, but it could be anything else. Metagross going right for a Protect. That's a little bit odd since it's the Pokemon that has the stronger field positioning, as Cresselia reveals the ally switch.
Okay.
Lele goes for a taunt into what used to be a Cresselia, as Charizard is able to get off a Heat Wave. Metagross, safe Protect there, but its partner Lele takes massive damage from the Heat Wave.
I didn't think it did nearly that much.
Charizard is a very strong Pokemon, not hit by any of the nerfs that other Megas were, because Sun is just as strong as it was last generation.
Right.
If Drew wants to deal with the Charizard this turn, he's going to have to guess which position it's in. That's not always an easy thing to do. It might be safest just to switch out. Oh, Suicune, good thing to put in against the Charizard. Alright. It seems like Metagross is just going to go for it and attack this turn. Charizard switches out into Landorus, which can intimidate the Metagross now that it's Mega Evolved and lost its clear body.
Right, that attack that it's going to go for is going to be only 66% as effective.
Ooh, it is a Zen Headbutt boosted by Psychic Drain. This is still going to do a lot of damage to that Landorus.
That crit definitely mattered.
Yeah.
There's no denying that.
Without the crit, that probably did like,
60%?
Yeah, 60. Cresselia very happy to get off the Icy Wind. Even if Landorus went down, this means that Charizard gets to come in now.
Steve gets a crit of his own. Unfortunately, it's the difference between 11 damage and maybe 5 or 6.
Alright, so even if Charizard does come in here, it needs a Helping Hand boost from the Cresselia to threaten a knockout on the Suicune, which can otherwise fire back with a Tailwind. And if you're not attacking the Metagross, that means it might just like hang in against the Charizard, even though it's outrun by the Charizard, and try to Zen Headbutt it.
Can a Mega Metagross take a Flamethrower? No.
Not at all. Even though the Metagross at -1, if Drew gets the Tailwind off, it should be faster, just because Metagross is a relatively fast Pokemon.
Right.
So, and Suicune often doesn't run Protect just to go for a full array of support moves and then still fit on Scald, Ice Beam of its own. So is Steve just going to go for a Helping Hand Solar Beam onto it to deny it? Is Metagross going to hang in here? It seems like Drew might not really have too much to switch in against the Charizard, so even if he wants to get Metagross out there, the switch in would take just as much damage from something. Metagross does try Protect, maybe expecting a Heat Wave. As Charizard goes for a Solar Beam, and I don't think this is targeting Metagross.
Suicune.
Suicune is almost certainly going to be able to live one of these, though. Takes it pretty comfortably. Second Icy Wind, so it gets to hit Suicune, that's cool. Suicune is, like, if it Tailwinds, it's just going to be at the same speed it was before anything.
Right, which will still be slower than a Charizard, so
it
needs to be cautious. Oh, a Snarl instead. That's going to be very helpful. Now I ask the same question. Can a Mega Metagross live a Charizard Flamethrower now?
We saw a Heat Wave from Charizard, but maybe it has, like, Flamethrower or Overheat as well. At this point, man, I need to learn my calcs a little bit better. I think if the Metagross doesn't have any bulk, it might just be a roll. It might take one pretty reliably.
Also, have to keep in mind that this Metagross is down 1 tier in speed, so
But, oh yeah, and it doesn't have Tailwind up or anything, so Charizard is going to be moving first here.
So that's why it's very important whether or not he will be able to live after that Snarl.
But the thing is, the Metagross probably won't be able to knock out the Charizard anyway, because it got set to -1 by the Landorus a little bit
That
earlier.
Intimidate did still happen. I forgot about that Intimidate. Okay.
So even with a double target, Mr. Talent might not be able to knock out the Charizard.
Well, if Suicon's only packing one attacking move, we have to hope for Mr. Talent's sake that it is Scald, because with a Scald, it may be able to do enough.
Yeah, respectable damage. As Metagross withdraws into Lele, maybe it's better to lose your 1/3 health Lele instead of your nearly full health Metagross to a Charizard.
Of course.
Sometimes you gotta know, like, when to let one of your Pokemon take the fall for another, because this is letting Metagross reset its attack drop from earlier in the game. There's no more Landorus to,
Right, so
to
he is
worry
packing
about.
Heat Wave and Flamethrower.
Yeah. To get around something like Wide Guard, it's a good combination of moves, and just not worry about Tailwind or Hidden Power Ground or anything, just leave that for the rest of your team.
So Solar Beam, Flamethrower, Heat Wave.
I don't think we've seen Protect, but you can just assume it.
You almost have to. I mean, with you're not trying to get Rock Slided into Oblivion.
Steve reminding us last turn that he does carry Ally Switch on this Cresselia, so even, like, though Mr. Talent has really solid positioning here, he has to get around the Ally Switch to get the most out of the turn. Ooh, Raw Switch into Tapu Koko. That's... Turning off the Psychic Train is smart. It means that Zard is safer here. It can take an attack from the Metagross now, which just decides to protect.
This Metagross is protected more than it's attacked.
Yeah.
I'm a little concerned that Mr. Talent's maybe too afraid here.
Yeah, and it's just going to let its partner go down to this Solar Beam.
Yeah, with no offensive presence, this Metagross is more of a hindrance than it is an asset.
Yeah. Like, I can appreciate being careful with it, but at this point it just used Protect. If that Tapu Koko has a Z move, it probably threatens a knockout on the Metagross with it. Kartana, that's not going to do too much against Charizard. Like, so Mr. Talent was prepared for Steve's Trick Room mode this game. We saw Taunt on the Lele like I kind of expected, but then he had 4 Pokemon that just weren't too solid against Charizard, and that was able to eat them up.
Yeah, I mean, if Charizard isn't dealt with this turn, then that's almost certainly the game for Steve.
Yeah,
because,
if that Tapu Koko doesn't have Z move, Metagross like will be able to hang in and look for a flinch on the Charizard, maybe. Oh, what dance is this gonna be? I think I know what it is. I think I know what's coming for that Metagross.
Oh no.
Electric Z Koko, like, just as good as it was last year, being able to threaten, like, super fast, super large damage on lots of Pokemon. It, like, if Kangaskhan or a Metagross or a lot of Megas don't have any bulk, it can just knock them out in one hit. Huge thing for a Mega that usually expects to take more than just one attack before going down.
Yeah.
Kartana against the world, I don't fancy its odds.
Yeah.
Like, I think the best way to summarize this set was that Drew happened to get Steve's, like, game mode wrong both games.
Yeah, Steve was able to, you know, I don't want to say he rolled the dice right, but, you know, he...
Yeah, some of it is, like, expecting what your opponent's going to do. Like,
Sure.
game 1, I really like the Mimilax choice, because even if the Lele has taunt, you can play around that. It's not like it's just instantly over for you if you get taunted.
Yeah, you can still click return until the cows come home.
And he found, like, a slightly less Trick Room favorable lead and kind of just steamrolled the game. Like, there really wasn't much Drew could do after the turn 0.
Yeah.
Right. Now we have to wonder whether Steve's going to be able to make it into Top Cut, and that depends on his resistance.
Yeah, that round was the make it or break it round. I was almost certain that Mr. Talent can no longer make it into top now that he is
X not a 2-3.
So now it's whether or not Steve can, due to his tiebreakers, and I don't know exactly how his other rounds turned out. I have round 3 in front of me, randomly round 3. Steve was pretty low in the tables at round 3, you know. So he's won.
So he started 0-2.
Yes, he started 0-2. So that means that, so from what I remember, tiebreakers are probably in his favor because losing early tends to be better?
No. So maybe he lost to really good players the first 2 rounds. Like, they could even be 5-0, 4-1. I don't think they are just based
Let's
on...
say theoretically.
Yeah, but then the next few rounds, like after round 3, you win that, but your opponent is 0-3 at that point. If they don't drop, they can play out. The best they can do is 2-3.
So will tiebreakers track your wins and your losses? Like, will it track that he lost to great players, or will it track that he beat 3
tracks both.
lower players?
It's just like whatever they finish at, that's what gets factored into resistance. Like, I'd imagine Steve is good. The people he lost to are probably good players that finished off well, might make top cut themselves. But the people he beat, no, they didn't end up doing too well today. They are going to hurt his resistance. It's pretty unlikely he makes it into the top.
I mean, well, I guess we'll see soon. Coming up next, we've got the top 8 cut, so stay tuned. Thanks for tuning in. We will be back super shortly.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.